shield!
Samurai regenerative blade fully charged. Traps ready.
So we've talked about Evolve via laptop now on several occasions.
We have.
And we've tried out some other things, just kind of general impressions, different time. It was one thing to play it at an event. It was a much different thing to play it with the alpha. And then it was really exciting to try out the new modes. But I think this is the biggest announcement of all the announcements they made so far. Is another monster is a huge change in dynamic to the game. And I'm curious how much you can tell about an evolved monster just from the name. Because when I think Kraken, I don't so much imagine like a very skinny monster that can fly around. So when I hear the word Wraith, I have not done my research. I don't know what the darn thing looks like. So what is Wraith?
So, I mean, Wraith as a word generally refers to like some kind of like demon ghost-like creature. When you think of Wraith from like the Lord of the Rings, for example, there are these like demon undead kings. The Wraith Kings, the Nazgul, but like in Evolve, the Wraith character is meant to be kind of this sneaky assassin character. So the way that Chris Ashton described it to me, the design director at Turtle Rock, he said, Goliath is the fighter character, Kraken is the wizard character, and Wraith is the assassin character. So Wraith doesn't have a lot of health or armor, but she has a lot of speed, mobility, and sneakiness. Now I asked why they always refer to Wraith as a she, maybe refer to the others as a he, and they said, well, the monsters don't really have gender per se, but they feel that she's more of a she character because she's been inspired by mermaids, a mixing of sirens and harpies, if you will. It was kind of an interesting description. So as a monster, she's got these two giant like Sith-like blades for arms. And she's very agile and can move very quickly around the map. But as I mentioned already, she doesn't have a lot of health or armor. So you have to be strategic about when you want to encounter the hunters and when you want to get into those combat scenarios versus maybe sneaking and taking your time and evolving and building up your armor that you do have.
Because one thing that I got to admit was kind of frustrating. Kraken's my personal favorite. I mean, but even with Goliath, I would get frustrated when I'd corner somebody, and I'd think, because it's always so delicious when you get one of these hunters by themselves. You're just like, oh, it's over, and if I can like actually corner you and nobody can help you. Or if you can take a medic out, and then you feel like I have this opportunity, I have to, maximize it, and I got to take out as many people as I can before they can get healed. And it would be kind of frustrating that like that's right when a cooldown wouldn't come back, or that's right when they would duck into a building, or I would just miss that opportunity. So I can imagine it would be kind of satisfying to have this character who I'm guessing Wraith does more DPS potentially than the other monsters. So when you do get those opportunities, you can maximize on them a little bit more at the expense of having the defense or having the toughness.
Yeah, I think that so far from the little that I've played of Wraith, like definitely seems like one of the most powerful monsters, if not the most powerful monster. And you sacrifice, it's that risk-reward scenario where you sacrifice health and armor, but you're more devastating attack-wise. So Wraith's abilities include 4 abilities like all the other monsters. So the first ability is the Warp Blast. So essentially, this is what allows Wraith to teleport. And so when you activate the Warp Blast, you'll like kind of teleport forward into a group of monsters or a group of hunters, or a group of wildlife, whatever you're trying to kill, and then you'll explode, essentially turning Wraith into a grenade of sorts. The second ability is Decoy, which allows you to send out a duplicate monster, but it's not just like a dummy monster. The decoy that you send out actually goes after and attacks the hunters, similar to what the minions do in nest mode or in defend mode,
And it's your size, it looks like you.
It
For all
looks
intents and
exactly
purposes, this
like
is
you. And so when you initiate the decoy, you become invisible. So it's really good for getting out of tight situations where if you're getting really attacked and your health is low, if you send out the decoy, you can like sneak off into the distance and go back and feed and get your armor back up. I found that to be a really helpful ability. The other
as a hunter, can I tell? Is there any way for me to tell it's a decoy? Is it just like when we DPS it enough, it just vanishes, or can I? If I'm looking at you when the decoy splits, can I see it? Will that give the hunters more advantage or propel them to pay closer attention so they can actually spot that like separation and tell like, no, it's a decoy, avoid it. Let's try to find the real thing.
I'm sure that there is a way with enough practice that you can tell when it's the decoys being initiated. I didn't spend enough time as a hunter playing against Wraith in order for me to be able to learn that, but I'm sure that you could see like a shimmering or something when the decoy is sent out, but quite frankly, you're so focused on the decoy that's attacking you that you don't really think about going after the actual monster because you have to kill the decoy off, before it'll dissipate after a certain amount of seconds. But I mean, that to me, when I was a hunter playing against Wraith, that's what I was concerned about. I was concerned about getting out of the way of the decoy. I wasn't concerned about finding the other monster.
Right, good call.
So another one of the cool abilities is abduction. So this is an ability that I think is really tough to master. This is why Wraith is the third unlockable monster, because all of the third wave of unlockable hunters and monsters are what Turtle Rock says are the most difficult to master. And so what abduction is it allows Wraith to warp across the map, grab a hunter, and then warp back to where they were. So you essentially have that hunter pulled away where you can corner them and attack them all on their own. So this is a really kind of scary ability if you're playing as a hunter and you get abducted, because they remove you from the group, and so you don't have the safety of numbers that the hunters do, and you're all alone cornered by Wraith. But when you're playing as Wraith, it's really difficult to pull off because you have to aim just perfectly in order to pull it off. But what I was told by one of the developers on site was that they've seen people pull off successful abductions from as far as 100 meters away. Which, I mean, you could essentially go after hunters and they have no idea what hit them. So that's what's really sneaky about the Wraith character. But my favorite ability, and to me what I think is probably the most devastating ability that I've seen from any of the monsters, is the Supernova. So this is a nebula area of effect cloud, and when Wraith is inside this cloud, so when you hit the button, it deploys this cloud, and Wraith turns white, and your attack speeds are double. So essentially your melee attack, when you're like slicing with your pincer arms, it goes like double speed. So essentially, like what Chris was calling it was like almost like a lawnmower effect, where you're going after your enemies and just like dicing them to little bits. It's awesome. It feels so powerful when you're playing as Wraith. I in fact, after my first round as Wraith, I just like completely forgot about abduction and I put all of my ability points into Supernova instead.
Well, but that's what's nice about spending those points is that you can really focus on what your play style is. And yeah, there were definitely some. I don't think there was one session I've played of Evolve currently where I spent one on each. I was definitely like, there's that. With each monster, there's generally that one ability. I'm like, I'm okay. I would much rather have this one that I'm really good at and can use all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you put everything into abduction, I wonder, does that increase like the distance or maybe the accuracy of it? The more points you put into it?
I'm not sure. Maybe. It would be cool if it did, but I don't have an answer for you on that one. Sorry.
I'm asking all the tough questions. Well, but that's the thing tactically about Evolve that's so fascinating is you have all of these abilities and it's kind of tough to say, like, okay, if I really want to lean at one, like, how will I be able to use that ability and how will I be able to counter that ability as a hunter? Like, if you're all in as a monster in this game, you're just like, oh, all I want to do is play the monster. It's like, you're going to get your butt kicked because you're not going to understand the perspective of what it's like being these hunters. And, when you talk about abduction, to me, if I was a big Hunter fan, like that would lead me to memorize the maps more, because if all of a sudden, like in a frame, the environment totally changed, the faster I can recognize where I am and where I need to go to get back to my team, and vice versa. Like if I'm able to communicate them via chat or just kind of like, I don't know, shoot a flare up in the air. Like, what could you possibly do to like, hey, I'm over here,
Yeah.
to scream at your team.
Well, that's what's so cool about the solo mode, which is another thing that we got to try out at this preview event. And a lot of people still don't know that Evolve is not a multiplayer-only game. You can play it completely single player. You don't have to play PvP. And so what I did is I played Evacuation mode, which is the 5 rounds of all the different types of modes, and I played it solo as the monster, as Wraith. And what that allowed me to do was really get a hold of the Wraith's abilities and really test them out and try out different combos and figure out like how was I was going to be the most successful playing as the monster, and vice versa. It's a great opportunity to test out different hunters and their different abilities and find out which hunter in each class you like to play with the best, and who kind of fits your play style. And it makes it just a little bit less stressful when you're playing against AI. I mean, the AI is challenging. When I was playing as a hunter in solo mode, like the Wraith that was playing as the AI was like really brutal, but I feel like it takes that little level of stress out that PvP always brings, at least to me. I know that there's other people out there that feel the same way I do. And so I was really happy to see that you can play Evolve solo, that you don't have to be locked into playing online.
So are we done? Is it 3? Is that the total count? Have they said? Are they going to?
Yeah, so 3 are what's going to be at launch. They have announced that there will be a 4th monster that will come as downloadable content. And right now they're allowing people to vote on ideas for the monster. So if you go to the Turtle Rock site, you can see all the details for that. They will be having the Xbox One open beta from January 15th through January 19th. That is an exclusive beta just for Xbox One. So sorry, PC and PS4 players, you won't be able to get into the open beta. But in the beta, not only will you be able to try out the new modes and new monsters, but you'll be able to play evacuation mode in the beta. So that's
cool.
That's really cool as well.
I'm super excited. This has been on my radar, which is kind of ironic because there's lots of radar in this game. Yeah, I'm really excited, and of course, it's like more monsters is the big thing. What do you think about the dynamic between these 3? Do you think it's going to work well?
I think that they all are just different enough to really kind of appeal to people of different types. When they said some of the statistics from the Big Alpha, looking at the breakdown of who was picking what, it seemed pretty evenly split. It'll be interesting to see how many people pick Wraith versus Goliath. And it also depends, of course, what mode you're on as well. I mean, because certain monsters and certain hunters are better for certain modes or certain maps than others are. And so that's all part of the strategy of learning the maps, learning the modes, and also seeing, what your teammates pick and what monster your opponent picks and what hunters your opponent picks and vice versa. So I think it's got a nice balance. I mean, they've certainly spent a lot of time balancing this game. So I'm with you. I'm excited to play. I'm ready for February to get here.
Well, that's the thing. We've played it enough.
I know.
I think balance is the big question. Really testing it against friends, playing it a lot in the office, and putting a lot of hours in so we can get a review out there. Thank you so much for putting in many hours into this game, Andrea, and doing tons of reporting on it. Really appreciate it.
Well, it's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it.